Hello, ladies and gentlemen, I am AirsoftAl, and that is correct. We are continuing reading War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells. You should see my face go off into another screen. Because, yes, I am in fact recording this as we speak. But yeah, very soon my face will go off into this little screen here, and you'll, yep. That is correct. Today we are continuing off from Chapter 1 to Chapter 2, The Falling Star. So let us begin, shall we? Or you can pause my face right here and just read for yourself. It's totally up to you. That's why I'm making this type of video. And I wish more people would actually do these types of videos so that way people can pause the video and quit hearing the guy yappity yap 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 yakety yak 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 and just read the dang book. Okay? Okay. Let us continue with Chapter 2, The Falling Star. Once again, we will read one chapter per video, and we will do so awesomely. Then came the night of the first falling star. It was seen early in the morning, rushing over Winchester, eastward, a line of flame high in the atmosphere. Hundreds must have seen it, and taken it from an ordinary falling star. Albin described it as leaving a greenish streak behind it that glowed for some seconds. Dinning, our greatest authority on meteorites, stated that the height of its first appearance was about 90 or 100 miles. It seemed to him it had fell to Earth, about 100 miles east of him. We gonna fucking work here, buddy? We gonna fucking work here? Yeah, okay, yeah, it's gonna work. I was at home at that hour, writing in my study, and although my French windows faced towards seriously, English. What was the word? I'm not gonna make fun of it, but seriously, what's with your town names? Seriously. And the blind was up, for I loved in those days to look out at the night sky. I saw nothing of it, yet the strangest of all things that never came to Earth from outer space must have fallen while I was sitting there. Visible to me had I only looked up as it passed. Some of those who saw it traveled with a hissing sound. I myself heard nothing of that. Many people in Berkshire, Surrey, and Middlesex, not Middlesex, Middlesect, okay, must have seen the fall of it, and, at most, have thought that another meteorite had descended. Spark! I'm sorry, guys. No one seems to have troubled to look for the fallen mass that night. But very early in the morning, poor Ogilvy. Oh boy, Ogilvy, you're not gonna like what happens to you in the story. Who had seen the shooting star and who was persuaded that a meteorite lay somewhere on the common, between Horsham, Ottershire, and Woking, rose early with the idea of finding it. Find it he did. Soon after dawn, and not far from the sand pits, an enormous hole had been made by the impact of the projectile, and the sand and gravel had been flung violently in every direction, over the heath, forming heaps visible a mile and a half away. The heath was on fire, eastward, and a thin blue smoke rose against the dawn. The thing itself lay almost entirely buried in sand, amidst the scattered splinters of a fir tree. It had shivered to fragments in its descent. The uncovered part had the appearance of a huge cylinder, caked over and outlined, softened by a thick, scaly, dun-colored incorrection, whatever the hell that word is. Again, you can just pause the video and read this if you want. It had a diameter of about 30 yards. He approached the mass, surprised at the size and more so at the shape, since most meteorites are rounded, more or less completely. It was, however, still so hot from its flight through the air as to forbid his near approach. A stirring noise within its cylinder he ascribed to the unequal cooling of its surface, for at that time it had not occurred to him that it might be hollow. He remained standing at the edge of the pit that the thing had made for itself, staring at its strange appearance, astonished, shivering, that word, at its unusual shape and color, and dimly perceiving even then some evidence of design in its arrival. The early morning was wonderfully still, and the sun just clearing the pine trees towards Weybridge was already warm. He did not remember hearing any birds that morning. There was a certainty no breeze stirring. Certainly no breeze stirring. My bad. And the only sounds were the faint movements from within the cylinder. Shindly cylinder. He was all alone on the common. Then suddenly, he noticed, with a start, that something of the grey clinker, the ashy and crushing that carved the meteorite was falling off the cylinder edge. At the end, it was dropping off in flakes and raining down upon the sand. A large piece suddenly came off and fell with a sharp noise and brought his heart into his mouth. For a minute he scarcely realized what this meant, and although the heat was excessive, he clambered down into the pit, close to the bulk, to see the thing more clearly. He fancied, even then, that the cooling of the body might account for this. But what disturbed that idea was the fact that the ash was falling only from the end of the cylinder, and then he perceived that very slowly the circular top of the cylinder was rotating on its body. It was such a gradual movement that he discovered it only through noticing that the black mark that had been near him 5 minutes ago was now at the other side of the circumference. Even then he scarcely understood what this indicated, until he had heard a muffled grunting sound, and saw the black mark jerk forward an inch or so. Then the thing came upon him. In a flash the cylinder was artificially hollow, with an end that screwed out. Something within the cylinder was unscrewing the top. "Good heavens!" said Ogilvy. "There's a man in it! Men in it! Half roasted to death, trying to escape!" Why am I giving this man a Australian accent? He's bloody well English. He needs an English accent. We're going to try that again with an English accent. "Good heavens," said Ogilvy. "There's a man in it. There's men in it. Half roasted to death, trying to escape." I can't help it. I seriously cannot. Some of these words I can't do in English. So sorry to any of my English viewers who like H.G. Wells. I'm butchering Ogilvy, but you know what? That's just what I can do with what I got. At once, with a quick mental leap, he linked the thing with the flash upon Mars. The thought of the confined creatures was so dreadful to him that he forgot the heat and went forward to the cylinder to help turn. But luckily the dull radiation arrested him before he could burn his hands on the still glowing metal. At that he stood irresolute for a moment, then turned, scrambled out of the pit, and set off running wildly into walking. The time then must have been somewhere about 6 o'clock, maybe, We were having our afternoon tea. Or we were having our morning tea, we were. He met a wagoner, and tried to make him understand, but the tale he told and his appearance were so wild, his hat had fallen off in the pit, that the man simply drove on. He was equally unsuccessful with the potman, who was just unlocking the doors to the public house by Horshell Bridge. The fellow thought he was a lunatic at large, and made an unsuccessful attempt to shut him into a tap room. That subdued him a little. And when he saw Henderson, the London journalist, in his garden, he called over to the palings and made himself understood. "Henderson!" he called. "You saw the shooting star last night?" "Well," said Henderson, "it's out on Horshell Commons now." "Good Lord!" said Henderson. "Fallen meteorites, that's good! But it's something more than a meteorite. That's good!" "Oh, my bad." "It's a cylinder, an artificial cylinder, man, and there's something inside." Henderson stood up with his spade in his hand. "What's that?" he said with a deaf in one ear. He was deaf in one ear. Ogilvy told him all that he had seen. Henderson was a minute or so taking it in. I mean, think about it. If someone's telling you that the cylinder crash landed in your backyard, you'd probably need a minute or two to take that in as well, wouldn't you? Yeah, I probably would too. I mean, good Lord, man. You're telling me that something from space crash landed in my thing and it's not a meteorite? Well, in modern day, it's probably us saying, well, NASA screwed up again. Looks like one of their satellites crashed into our yard. Kind of happy I got that satellite insurance. Oh, no, wait, I didn't. NASA, you're going to have to pay me a lot of money. Then he dropped his spade, snatched up his jacket, and came out into the road. The two men hurried back at once into the common, and found the cylinder still laying in the same position. But now the sounds inside had ceased, and a thin circle of bright metal showed between the top and the body of the cylinder. Air was either entering or escaping at the rim, with a thin sizzling sound. They listened, rapid on the scaling burnt metal with a stick, and meeting with no response. They both concluded that the man or men inside must be insensible or dead. Of course, the two were quite unable to do anything. They shouted consistent promises and went off back to the town again to get help. One can imagine them covered with sand, excited and disordered, running up the little street in the bright sunlight just as the shop folks were taking down their shutters and people were opening their bedroom windows. Henderson went into the railway station at once in order to telegraph the news to London. The newspaper articles had prepared men's minds for the reception of the idea. By 8 o'clock, number of boys and unemployed men had already started for the common to see the dead men from Mars. That was the form the story took. I heard of it first from my newspaper boy about 9:15, when I went out to get my daily chronicle. I was naturally startled and lost no time in going out and across the Orton Bridge to the sandpits. Well, that's the end of Chapter 2, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue off in Chapter 3 on Horshell Commons. And you might get something pretty interesting. So until next time, guys, I've been AirsoftAl, and as always, I will see you in the next AirsoftAl Reads. Until next time.